Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone on the line. Also, for the people to replay our recording later on, my name is Star Gao. I work in GOBii project located at Cornell University. So I'm your host for GOBii and the Excellence in Breeding platform joined monthly webinar. So today we have our team from CIMMYT to present you on the genomic assisted hybrid breeding for wheat at CIMMYT. So first, let me welcome our presenters and introduce you our facilitator and also host, Dr. Umesh Rosyara. Dr. Rosyara is a molecular integration deployment breeder at CIMMYT working on GOBii project. He has vast experience in genomic breeding and also genomic assisted selection. So has contributed tremendously in GOBii galaxy analysis pipeline and also in haplotype tracking and flapjack. So today is his numerous time actually hosting and inviting his colleague. So with that, Dr. Rosyara, you can take the floor.
Yeah, thank you, sir. It's nice to be presenting about very exciting topic today on the hybrid wheat breeding. Hybrid wheat breeding led by Dr. Bhoja Basnet. Bhoja Basnet leads the hybrid wheat program here in collaboration with all the programs. So it's not in isolation. Anything not isolated in India specific. We work very closely. Bhoja Basnet has a PhD from Texas A&M, and he's very energetic scientist, and it's a big opportunity and challenge as well to work in hybrid wheat program because and CIMMYT has a renewed interest on it. So today's topic will cover mostly how we can use genomics tools to assist his program. And the second topic probably Jose Crossa, we call him Poncho, needs no introduction. I think many of you know. So he has very different ways to introduce himself, but I don't want to introduce. He has a very long career, and everybody in genomic selection, statistical genetics, anything knows him, and he's a legend. So we are very glad to he is talking and joining us on this talk. Now let's get started to the point. We have three segments. First, Dr. Bhoja Basnet will have overview of hybrid wheat program here in CIMMYT, and they're followed by genomic prediction that we have recently published a paper together on plant genome. Dr. Crossa will talk about that, and then I'll come back with other implications of genomic assisted tools in hybrid breeding program. Sorry. So now first we start with Bhoja.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Star GOBii, for this opportunity, and thank you, Umesh, for the nice introduction. So yeah, I will be talking briefly about the hybrid wheat program in CIMMYT. So I will not take that long because today's focus is on genomics assisted breeding for hybrid wheat, basically. So I'll start with the history of hybrid wheat in CIMMYT. Basically, hybrid wheat is not that new for CIMMYT. Actually, it started in 1962 when the male sterility, cytoplasmic male sterility was first introduced. So CIMMYT was excited, and then it started a new breeding program in hybrid wheat, but after a few years, it was phased out, and then there is no real progress report so far. And again, restarted in 1996 with Monsanto, in collaboration with Monsanto, and it was focused to use the chemical that time developed by Monsanto, Genesis. And it went for about 6 years, And again, yeah, it was shut down because of different reasons. And then from 2002 to 2004, CIMMYT worked a little bit on CMS system, but it did not go anywhere. And then CIMMYT stopped for quite a while, and then again in 2012. So there was different views from different stakeholders, public and private sectors, and people were rethinking about hybrid wheat. So CIMMYT also reinitiated the effort, and then we started a collaborative project with Syngenta. So far we're still going on in collaboration with Syngenta, and this is I believe it's the longest running hybrid program in CIMMYT. So there are two major objectives of hybrid wheat research in CIMMYT. The first one is just to demonstrate the existence of viable heterosis in CIMMYT spring wheat germplasm. And the second one is to develop more efficient hybrid production systems and tools in order to make the hybrid seed more affordable. So these are the major two constraints, the hybrid heterosis and seed production. So CIMMYT is trying to address these two major issues in hybrid wheat. So this is the very brief schematic outline of our chemical-based hybrid production and testing. Basically, we make use of advanced lines developed by Blade Wheat Improvement Program at CIMMYT. So we use basically a single pool for chemical-based hybrid production and testing. But for this one, we cannot use all the lines to produce hybrid because there are some requirements to qualify as male and female. So first we'll screen those Blade Wheat lines based on different traits, for example, phenological traits and floral traits different. So this would there should be a good kind of expression of this trait. For example, the height and the flowering duration, the flowering time, anther extrusion, that's very important to get cross-pollinated. And then tillering capacity, any coefficient of parentage or pedigree, we look at the pedigree, so we try to diversify those male and female parents. So based on these traits, we basically separate into male and female types to put them in production blocks. So once we separate them into male and female type, then we put in the field for production. And basically, we use line by tester design, where we have a limited number of males as tester because it's very difficult to find good male types in the breeding program. So we use many females but few males. This should perfectly fit as pollinator, good pollinator. And then once we produce the hybrid seed, then we test for yield and sometimes yield components, and of course for combining abilities. Especially in Mexico, in subsets of those will be sent to India, 2 locations in India for testing as well. So here you can see this application of chemical hybridizing agent, you can say, or you can say gametocide on the left. And then on the right, you can see the female plot, which was applied with chemical, a CHA, that is completely sterile, male sterile. Well, the seed production is affected by different factors, especially the floral traits. Anther extrusion is very important. There should be very good anther extrusion in male parent, and not only anther extrusion. There should be the male parent should produce a lot of pollens, and also we need to have very synchronized phenological traits. For example, a relative height and maturity. Maturity is more important because the male and female, they should mature, or they should flower at the same time, or at least the female should flower few days earlier than the male. That would be the ideal case to have higher seed production. And not only that, the seed production is affected by environmental factors as well. For example, the relative humidity, the rainfall itself. If it rains during flowering time, and it is adversely affected, so the seed production will be very low. So there are other factors as well. So here is a quick output of seed production, or the results of seed production in 2014-15 cycle. We got in Oregon. We can see various range of seed set. We compared the seed set with the male parent because we basically apply the chemical to the female, so we cannot plant the female nearby the production block. So we compare with the male, basically. So in this case, we have about 20% of the hybrid combination with more than 60% of seed set. So if you look at on the right, so the trend of seed production is increasing a little bit from the start of our program in 2011-12. So that means like we have more experience in hybrid production, and we have better selection of the parents, male and female type of parents. Well, this is not the end. Basically, using chemical is kind of challenging, it's technically challenging, and also it affects the seed set in the female parent, basically. If you look at the graph here, the bar graph, there are each pair represents a combination of specific male and female. And then the seed set is represented here in two different treatments. The one with blue bar is treated with gametocide. The other one is untreated, basically. And these are all the CMS lines. So they are sterile. So once we treat with the gametocide, the seed set will be reduced drastically. So basically, near about 40 to 50% of seed set is reduced by chemical itself. So it is very challenging. So this is a quick outlook of our recent results we got from our hybrid testing in Mexico and India last year, basically 2017 and 18. And in Oregon, in single year, basically, we had 955 hybrids. So we got about 10 to 12% commercial heterogeneity at maximum. So at the yield potential level of nearly 9.8 ton per hectare. It was about 1 ton per hectare advantage over the best check. But the frequency of these best hybrids were very, very low. And in Oregon, after 2 years, we had 385 because some of the best hybrids were retested again. So if we average over these 2 years, so we got 10% commercial heterosis. That means 10% higher yield than the best check. At the level, I mean, the best hybrid was 9.55 tons per hectare. And in India, then very similar, little bit higher heterosis. We observed about 15% commercial heterosis in few best hybrids at the with 8.7 ton per hectare of yield. And Jabalpur, India, is still better. We observe nearly 20% commercial heterosis with the highest the hybrid yielding 9.3 ton per hectare. So about the mid parent heterosis, we had quite a big range. It ranged from -20 to 30% of the mid parent. So in average, it was 5 to 7% across different environments. So, well, we started with the chemical-based hybrid production and testing, but slowly, once we gained information about combining ability of the parents and different potential of our CIMMYT germplasm, we started to move forward for the CMS-based breeding at CIMMYT, because we think this is more sustainable and more affordable to produce the seed. So, but it was very challenging to start with the CMS breeding program at CIMMYT because we did not have any materials or any sources of CMS and restorer lines in the beginning. So we introduced some hybrids itself from Australia and started to sell them. And from F2, we select the fully fertile ones and advanced to the F5, F6, and fixed lines, and they became the restorer. At the same time, we selected the fully sterile line, fully sterile plant in F2, and we backcrossed with our CIMMYT material. So this is how we started our R line and A line development and CIMMYT. And this is what we do recently, currently, basically. In our line breeding pipeline, we have a crossing block, basically, and it comprises of restorer sources. They provide the restorers. And basically, these are initially they were the Australian lines that we received, or Australian hybrid derived lines we developed here. And then, we have basically good male lines. We tested, we identified based on the chemical-based hybrid testing, and based on the GCA of those parents. So we selected some of the elite male types, male ones, and then we started to cross with the restorer sources. And then we start selection right from the F1, because the restorer sources, the restorer lines, they carry the CMS in the background as well. So in the F1, we need to find, I mean, those F1s should be fully fertile in order to get the fertile restorers. So, and after that, in F2, F3, F4 segregating population, we use modified bulk or pedigree based on the crosses we made. Some of them might be very interesting for us, so I'll go through the pedigree method, but it's very difficult to manage the resources. So we don't go through pedigree for all the crosses. So most of about like 80% of the population will go through modified bulk selection, and remaining few and most targeted crosses are selected through pedigree method. And then our selection, we do selection in Oregon and Toluca through shuttle breeding, as we do in the our conventional breeding program as well. And it gives very good opportunity to select for fertility, you can say sterility, across two different locations. And of course, for selection, our priority is with different. So the first thing is fertility. The plant that we select should be completely fertile, and then they should have very good anther extrusion for sure. If we don't have these first two traits, then it's no use of using these lines in hybrids. So, and then also we want to try to select for maturity. So we want the male lines to be a little bit later than the females, and plant height, we expect them to be a little bit taller than the female types, and of course the other traits, and disease and tillering and other traits will come later. At the same time, in the F5, we produce the F5 head rows, and then in this stage we use molecular markers to screen for restorer genes. And we do further observation for different traits that we are interested in. And we also do test cross with the common tester lines in order to look for the restoration capability in F1. So in this way, we look for the marker, the markers that are needed should be there in the restorer lines. And also, just to validate, and these lines, when we cross with the tester's CMS line, should restore the fertility completely, like 100% fertility restoration should be there in F1. So we select those lines and move forward for hybrid testing, hybrid production and testing, and those will go again to the crossing block. So we repeat the cycle. So well, so we have recently developed very good male lines. And some of them, I mean, definitely they carry good anther extrusion trait, and they are very good for restoration. As you can see on the left here, there's a comparison. I have compared two lines. One is on the right side is a new male line that we developed, and the other is the line from Breedwheat program, and this is the average pollinator as compared to this new line. This is the anther extrusion is really good. And overall, we can compare the Breedwheat lines with our new lines. So we have made improvement on the cross-pollinating traits. Well, in hybrid production as well, last year we had, for the first time, we produced the CMS hybrids. In addition to the CHA hybrids, as usual, we produce CHA hybrids, and then we started producing CMS hybrids. So in the future, we aim to reduce the CHA-based hybrids and then focus in CMS hybrids only. So you can see here the seed production is significantly high in CMS hybrids. So this is just because, this is because the fertility, the sterility in CMS line or female line is not a problem at all. They are 100% sterile at the same time, and there is no adverse effect of chemicals. So it's more or less like more than 2 times or almost 3 times higher seed production in an average in CMS hybrids, CMS production system. So overall, I would like to summarize our effort in CMS breeding. So in 2012, we introduced the hybrids, CMS hybrids from Australia as a source of CMS as well as for restorers. And those were really poor types. As you can see on the left bottom, they were very short and very early type, and definitely the yield was very poor, and they were susceptible to yellow rust. This is why the Australian hybrids program was, I mean, we were not successful at the end. It was because of the rust. So we started to integrate those restorer traits, basically, or fertility restorer genes, and then in CIMMYT materials, and we started to make progress slowly. And then so far, we have developed several restorer lines which have very good restoration capacity or restoration ability, and they are pretty good in terms of phenology and yield and other male traits. So I consider this a tremendous improvement in terms of R-line breeding at CIMMYT. So we are hoping we continue doing this one. Now we don't have to cross our materials with the original restorer sources, because we already have better types here. So we start, I mean, they are all fixed for restorer genes. So we start intercrossing those lines, and basically we aim to develop elite male breeding pool in coming years. Well, this is my last slide. So at the same time, we do R-line breeding, and then this is one of the major activities here. And at the same time, we need the female lines as well, the CMS line. So based on the combining ability that we test through chemical-based hybrids, so we identify the good female types and good combiner, and we start conversion basically into CMS system. So we call it A-line conversion program, and we start in the greenhouse, and then we can easily grow 3 growing cycles per year, and then we do that F1, BC1, BC2 stage in greenhouse. We don't need much seed, just few seeds are okay, and then we put those crosses into the greenhouse to have a little bit more seed, and after that we need larger amount of seed to produce the hybrid. So we multiply them in small tanks that we basically designed, we develop ourselves here, that be cheaper and easier. But still, this is very challenging. The conversion is not a big deal, but the maintenance and use of those CMS lines is always challenging. So more or less, this is what we are doing here at CIMMYT in terms of hybrid breeding and then improvements. So there are lots more things we cannot cover at this moment. So I'll be happy to have to take any question. But at the end, I think we'll finish our presentation. Our 2 presenters here. So after finishing our presentation, we'll take the question together. Okay, so I'll hand over to Dr. Jose Crossa for the next presentation. Can I have here?
But I can move it here. Right?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jose Crossa. I work in the biometric unit of CIMMYT. Thank you, Star, for the invitation. Bhoja and Umesh for putting the presentation together. With Paulino, we thought that we could help Bhoja to make hybrid prediction using some of the models or using some extension of the models that we usually use. But now, the new thing is just to include, simply include the general combining ability, specific combining ability by environment interaction, and also adding an environmental covariance. The background on hybrid prediction, I think that this is more based on maize. Actually, Rex Bernardo in 1994 was the first one to show the prediction of hybrids using markers and using pedigree in the paper in Crop Science. And and the genomic prediction studies conducted over the last years, they basically use rich regression and genomic-based or the GenLab. And these have been extensively used in maize, with or without markers. In wheat, In wheat, the hybrid prediction is less popular because for the nature of the crop. Sometimes it's not easy to get heterosis in wheat. The heterotic groups are not very well developed, right? Although Bhoja was able to show up to 25% of heterosis. And but basically I guess these three papers that I more or less described here, especially the young one, the young with the epistatic effect, was a good paper. But all of them, they show good predictions accuracy when for predicting wheat hybrids. And what we have done in this study was simply to add to the hybrid prediction the hybrid by environment interaction. That was not done before, not at least not in wheat, but also not in maize. And we have this. This was a student we have with Paulino that initially we used this method of hybrid by environment interaction using a big maize data set, but it was perfectly appropriate to use it in Bhoja's data. So the main objective of this study was do the genomic enabled prediction for large data sets, single crosses in wheat, and use a model that has a general combinability, specific combinability, and the environmental covariables. We use the total number of hybrids were 1,888. Bhoja cross 18 males and 667 females, evaluating the field for 3 years at CIMMYT. The genotypic data we use, initially we have a large number of SNPs. There were about 13,000 SNPs. And then after the quality and imputation and all this, we ended up with 10,000 markers for the analysis. Environmental data that we collected, we divided the growth cycle into 10 days period. So we have maximum temperature, minimum temperature, average temperature, the precipitation and growing disease. We use that because we have a model that allows to use this as a characterization of the environment. So we have the characterization of the male, the characterization of the female, the characterization of the hybrid, as well as the characterization of the 3 years we have. We have cycles 14, 15, 15, 16, 16, 17. The number of hybrids evaluated in 3 years are these. You see that there is some overlapping between years, and the total overlapping between the 3 years was only 1 to 2 hybrids, but there are some overlapping between 13 year 1 and year 2 and year 1 and year 3 and so forth. These are the phenotypic data that we analyze more. I show here only the box plot. You see that for year 2 and 3, the grain yield was higher than for year 1. The same with days to heading and plant high. These are the distribution, and you see more or less here. You see the heterosis that we have over the mean parent. That there is some heterosis here, of course, for grain yield, for days to heading, and for plant high. These are the only equations I show. The equation for the GBLAP. These are the fixed effect of the sites. Then we have, for this particular model that we call model 1, we have the general combinability for the male the general combinability of the female, and the general combinability of the male by female, which is a hybrid interaction. Here there is no hybrid by environment interaction. This is the main effect. This model here includes the male and the female, the hybrids, and then the male by environment interaction, the female by environment interaction, and the hybrid by environment interaction. Then we have the pedigree, because we have pedigree for all this data, male and female. So the same two we have for the pedigree, which is model 3 and 4. And then the last model has the markers and the pedigree, with the main effect of the markers and the pedigree, of the main effect of male and female, and the corresponding interaction. So this is the most complete model that we hope we will capture more variability than on the previous one. Having said that, then we propose sort of cross-validation strategy, because we have we say how will be the prediction of untested, unobserved females? How will be the prediction of untested males? And how will be the prediction of hybrids that were created with untested males and females? So we have 4 situations. The T1 male, where the male was tested, the T1 female, where the female was tested, the T2 male and female, where both were tested, and the T0 male and female, where any of the males and females were tested. And we did some cross-validations for each of these cases. I'm sorry. So these are the prediction results for the T2FM, which is male and females that were observed in the field. And you see that the prediction accuracy for model 5, which is the largest one, or the most complete one, was 0.65. And for Grainy, and this is a very good, I guess this is a very good prediction. Not much difference with M4 or M2, but still M5 is the most accuracy. For days to heading, M4 and 5. For days to heading, days to flowering, days to maturity, M4 and 5, and also the plant height 0.55. So this is a very good prediction that we have for this problem, which may not be the most important, the most complicated one, because we have observed the females and the males. In other cases, in this particular case, T1F, we have observed the females, but we haven't observed the males. And for Grainy, we get for model 5 a 0.55 accuracy on the cross validations. For days to heading, days to flowering, days to maturity, and plant height was only 0.38. Also, for T1M, which is female untested, male tested, model 5 was the best one for Grainy, but model 3 was good for days to heading, days to flowering, days to maturity in model 4, and plant height 0.6. What happened with the most difficult situation? With the most difficult situation where we haven't observed the male and the female, still due to the relationship between the males and the females, we were able to capture some variability and borrow information from those that were tested to predict the untested cross. So the untested cross with environmental covariables and with the full model gives a prediction accuracy of 0.61, which is rather, I would say, this is very good. It's a very good prediction. Haven't been observed the male or the female. So I think that this is finish my part. Thank you very much. Any questions at the end? Good.
Okay, thank you. it's my turn to go through some other, some prospecting and some ongoing other genomic tools that we are integrating with hybrid wheat program. And it's not no mean just I am doing, but it's a molecular wheat breeding team here who is helping hybrid wheat program in conducting different molecular tools in hybrid wheat program. So one of the thing is routinely screening for fertility restorer gene, which is important for the seed set, as Bhoja discussed about, and the anthrax exertion traits. And other traits, like we routinely screen for major genes like disease resistant flowering and so on the all crossing nursery, and including the parents included in hybrid wheat program. So one of the important traits that Bhoja talked about is anthrax too, because it's important in the seed set. So one study was done to map the gene involved in anthrax exclusion, and there were 3 QTL found, which is very big one, I think fairly big good one, in 5A, 3A, and 5D. So the associated marker is being used for hybrid screening the parents in the hybrid program. And one of prospect to look at is development of male sterile line. When you have to convert any line into male sterile or any line into restorer, marker aided backcrossing can greatly facilitate by reducing number of crosses you need to do this. So marker aided backcrossing, background selection will be very helpful. We might look at combining this with speed breeding. Then is the program whenever we need, we can change any line to male sterile quicker. That will help to reduce the turnaround time and increase the heterosis, obviously, if you have more options in making crosses and using hybrid breeding. One aspect what we are working, and we already presented in GOBii seminar, is developing QC panel, which may be very useful in hybrid program because it's of sensitivity associated with. In QC panel, we already discussed in previous QC seminar I gave, and it's available on YouTube if you want to go through the details. But I will briefly mention that we are developing this QC panel, which has a multiple objective of identity, purity, and parent taste. So, which can be very helpful in hybrid program. So one is the identity, means whether the samples we have is true to the reference we have. That's the identity problem we always face. And the parentage, whether X cross is from any of 2 parent combination. That's also one of the questions we always have. And purity is how much off types a seed mix has is a purity. So quickly go into the QC panel development. This we use 2 sets, breeding set and diverse set, to come up with common set of markers that can be used in both breeding and diversity. So that type of robust panel that can do both, more challenging is within breeding set, because where we have a lot of SIPs and a lot of similar than the diverse set where, yeah. But when you try to balance to distinguish between SIPs versus the diverse, then it's another challenging problem. But we're trying to combine them. This is our pipeline, how we develop. We're trying to develop. We are at the bottom of the stage. almost developing caste assay with the set of markers we already have. And once we have that, we have already looked at power of discrimination of this panel based on different combinations, and we want to have something like discrimination, very high discrimination power. Obviously, nothing can be universal depending upon how many markers you want to have that in the panel. So for the sake of, I don't want to go too much on QC, but for the sake of hybrid, one of the things we already sample is the hybrid test. So that's important because when our hybrid program has some set, is going to release something, then we may interested to know what's the true hybrid seed, because there can be some self, obviously, particularly in chemical agents. It's not perfectly killing, then you can have self. So, with the QC panel, we may be able to, we are already trying this to see what the proportion of hybrids, true hybrids, in X number of samples. That will give you the proportion of hybridity. Another aspect, very important, is confirmation of the identity of parental lines and the intellectual property. When we will come down to a stage when we're releasing the hybrid variety, we have to be very careful on the confirmation of the parental lines. So that is true. Otherwise, if you give a line that's not true, will not give you heterosis, whatever is we observe in our field. So it's very important to confirm the parental identity in one aspect of production, another aspect is intellectual property. So once, although we're not a commercial, but it's still important to have some, I don't know what intellectual property will be done when it comes to release of any hybrid, which is not done yet. But in that state marker, the QC panel like things combined with the major genes may be very helpful in profiling any of the lines, and that can be used to file an intellectual protection claim or something like that. And so that, we don't know if the modules what we follow, but at that stage, the marker, that type of QC panel may be very helpful. So the genetical purity and integrity of parent line is very important. It's also important in hybrid seed production. So over time, there are chances of multiplication mistakes happening on multiplication maintenance and so on. So that type of things can be minimized by regular like sampling, desampling, and then doing some quality control. So we'll be checking our QC panel for this purpose as well, and we're working with hybrid program as well as other regular breeding programs. One of the things that also said, we don't have heterotic group yet. So one of the aspects we want to look at, maybe in the future, try to come up with maybe not distinct heterotic groups, but if you have a general idea, this may give you a higher view, not very clear, then it will be very good prospect to look at. Maybe that's a follow-up study to what Pancho already discussed, the predictions. Yeah, that's our future aim. So essentially, GOBii will be helpful. We're talking in context of GOBii as well to have our data stored, and maybe in future we can come up with something like a hybrid with genomic selection tool, which can like do some pull up data from different databases, including GOBii, and then the heterogeneous grouping. If we can come with something like that, then we can combine the tool that will quickly help which will work or which will not work. It may be very helpful for our heavy with program. Yeah, that's all I want to say, and we think we are on time, a little bit behind maybe. But in summary, development of hybrid wheat has some prospects and challenges that Bhoja already discussed. If you have any questions, we can have a discussion on that. Genomic prediction are very good, I think, promising, and we have to think about this full integration. And then other genomic tools can also help in modernizing hybrid wheat program. Okay, with that, I think Bhoja wants to say some more minutes.
Yeah, at the end, we should not forget to thank our supporters and collaborators. I would like to thank all the scientists and research group from CIMMYT and outside, so who are helping and supporting hybrid program directly or indirectly. So I have listed here. It's difficult to list all the names, but I would like to thank all the scientists and collaborators who are working closely with us. And of course, we need funding to do some research work. So as I mentioned earlier, CIMMYT is our major collaborator. So we have been working together for the last 7 years. So we hope we'll continue again in the future as well. And there are different others funders who support our CRP with funding. Basically, that's the core funding that we have in WIT program. So we would like to thank all those donors and all the supporters, all the scientists, collaborators. Thank you so much. So we'll be happy to have or to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Basnet and Jose, and also Umesh. So now the floor is open for everyone on the line. You can also use the chat function to type in your questions. Okay, so we have a few questions on the chat. Umesh, if you want to facilitate.
All right. Let's see. I didn't see the chat. Oh, here. Okay. So. Heterobeltosis rather than mid-parent heterosis.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, that may be the full question. Question is here.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. Yeah, heterobeltosis is nothing but it's the commercial heterosis or high parent, you can say high parent heterosis. And yeah, it would be, I mean, I didn't present here because, you know, this is a short time to present all those things, but the high parent heterosis is up to 20%. We have observed in Mexico and a little bit higher in India. So it's, of course, it's a bit less than mid-parent heterosis and a little bit higher than the commercial heterosis when we compare with the best check. And
so related to that question, could you give us some examples, the existing well-established hybrid wheat breeding commercially or publicly? If any.
Yeah, there are few. In public, in Germany, there are IPK and Hohenheim, University of Hohenheim. They are working in genetics, mostly in hybrid with genetics side. And they do hybriding program as well, so far as I know. But in public, in the US, there are Nebraska, University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and Texas A&M. They are working in hybrid wheat recently. And of course, we are working. So I think in public side, we are also doing good. So it's and a reasonably good program in terms of size as well. In commercial, in private sector, yes, there are many private companies. They are working in hybrid wheat now. There is a renewed interest, I can say, especially focused in Europe because the yield potential is very high. So if we get 10% of heterosis, of commercial heterosis, and I have heard from some colleagues or some representative from private sector that it is sufficient to get like a profit, good amount of profit, and the farmers are happy to buy it. So, but if the yield potential is too low or less than 5 tons per hectare or so, so that means we have to struggle a lot, I believe.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, here is the question. Thanks, Dr. Basnet, for a wonderful overview on CIMMYT hybridity status and progress and workflow. Do you see hybrid wheat will have similar potential a hybrid crop in CMS system can be established? Also, any mutation methods attempted for the slide?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. It's still challenging, and we have to wait and see. And it's not only about the science, or it's not only about genetics. There should be some other aspects which can condition for the hybrid wheat. But based on recent advances and then interest from different sectors, looks like it might come in the future, even though it may not be it may not be expanded in large scale, but in small scale, I hope it will be coming. Based on the investment and interest people are putting in.
Okay, the next question probably. Hi, Bhoja, good research area. Thank you for reminding my earlier work at Directory of Wheat Research at Crossa. When can we expect commercial hybrid? Still, I suggest you consider on standard hysteresis on heterobeltosis rather than mid-parent.
I answered this question before, and of course, in wheat we the high parent heterosis or beltosis, heterobeltosis is very, we can consider them very similar to the commercial heterosis because we can use those high parent or best parent as one of the parent anyway. So, and it's a bit higher at this moment. The high parent heterosis is a bit higher than the commercial heterosis. Yeah.
Okay. Given there could be some percentage of selfing in CMS production, just wondering if your team had of the minor self in the CMS derived hybrid seeds. Any pedigree verification and seed purity analysis done using genomic marker data?
Yeah, so far we haven't used, but our aim is to use marker to control the quality in the future, basically.
Yeah.
To check the hybridity and then the purity in the CMS line itself. So, but the problem of selfing, there is no problem of selfing in CMS parent itself, because we know there are some lines which cannot be converted into CMS line because there are minor restorer genes, so they cause some degree of selfing. So we just discard those lines and we develop CMS lines which can be 100% sterile.
Yeah, the pilot project that we're talking is we have some samples already sent to check with the QC panel we're coming up with to see if you can use that type of things to control to check that. Okay. Okay. Hey, Bhoja, what is the effect of hybrid wheat on protein and other quality traits, and how you selected the parents when no heterotic group are present?
For quality, we haven't done extensive evaluation for quality traits because our current objective is a bit different, and of course we cannot do everything. The resource is limited, but we had a very small sample tested 2 years back, and it's like we found the quality as a mixture because we have in F2 seeds, like different genotypes. So the quality will be a mixture of the parents. So if we have one parent with good quality and other is average, so we can have a very good quality on those F2 seeds, basically. So this is what we observe in short. So parental selection in the beginning was kind of, it was, there is no heterotic group, and we selected based on the male and female traits. So that we could produce some hybrid seed and then test for hybridity and test for heterosis. So initially we just selected based on the traits that are suitable to produce hybrids. But later on, slowly we do have molecular data and then all combining abilities of the parents and the hybrids. So we're trying to separate, and based on the we are collecting different germplasm from different places. So we're trying to confine the male breeding program in limited number of lines that we are using for a long time. So, I hope we're trying to build the male pool, and we'll be able to do that. But they may not be like distinct heterotic group. So we'll see that in the future.
Okay, one more question here. How diverse are CMS sources, or do you have in mind to explore other sources like GMS? Do you want to answer this?
Okay. Now we are using just one source, Triticum timophoebe based CMS system, and we haven't explored much about others because this is the one which was successful before, so this is kind of proven system. And yeah, there are different other systems so we can explore those, but at this moment we are just using or testing this system.
Okay, it's for functional probability. My model seems to be as efficient as complex model 5.
I presume you talk about grain yield. Model 2 has the main effect of the markers and the general combinability, specific combinability, and the interaction with the environment. Usually the pedigree adds something, but not that much for grain yield. If you remember that table, for most of the models, the predictions were for T2MF were around 0.6. But yeah, the model 5 has the pedigree and the markers, but model 2 has the marker. And if you look at in the publication, the variance component were always larger, higher for markers than for pedigree, as we expected. Soil properties, yes, I wish we have those, but I don't know if exactly for this particular part where the experiment was conducted in Obregon, I don't know if that was possible to collect. But it is, yes, it is one of the main causes of GOBii, but I don't think we have the soil analysis where the experiments were conducted.
All right. So one more question. Have you heard about hybrid performance in Europe this year, where the yield were very volatile throughout? Did it make a positive difference?
Yeah, hi Victor. Yeah, I haven't heard about it, but year before I heard that there was a lot of rainfall in Europe, especially in France, and the wheat was affected by the drought. And but based on our experience in India, sometimes some level of stress is okay for hybrid. Hybrid are still better than the parental lines or their commercial lines that are available there. For example, in 2015 and 16 in India, we unfortunately couldn't send our materials earlier on time. So it was planted in December, mid-December. It was almost 1 month late as compared to the normal planting. But it's still, in this case, the heterosis was really high. And, both biparental heterosis and then high parent heterosis, commercial heterosis was very high. It was up to 30% heterosis, basically. So they were more stable in the stress condition, hybrids, as compared to the lines. So sometimes, you know, the hybrids are good for those kind of stress conditions, I believe.
Yeah, I think just on time. Like on top of ours, I don't see any more.
Can I make one
questions.
announcement?
Yeah, do it.
Okay, I think this is a good platform to make announcement. We have recently developed our first set of R lines, restore lines, and they are available for everybody. So they are ready to be distributed. And if anyone is interested from anywhere, please contact us, and we will provide a small amount of those R lines for using research or anything.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Basnet. We can also help to include that in our seminar announcement together with your slides on YouTube if you want.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Also, we can compile all the questions if you want to follow up with written comments. And then thank you, everyone. So there's a poll. Currently, we have 50% of people participated. If you still want to participate, quickly, I will end the poll in 10 seconds. All right, anyone else? I will end the polling. Okay, can everyone see? Okay, so today's seminar is relevant and useful. 50% says, and somewhat 50%. And some people willing to present and invite other people. We have 60%. And 88% people say today's overall experience is good. And 13% says poor. So we'll continue improving. Okay, thank you so much, Umesh, for your team, Dr. Basnet and Pancho for the wonderful, informative presentation. And with that, we'll conclude today's seminar, and we'll share the YouTube and the questions in our link. Thank you so much. Okay, bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good day.